I've always looked at patents both in technology and in business. How does this organization, what sort of problem patents do they have, and therefore what technology solution patents fit that? It's more now, I think, a matter of integrating existing components to solve business problems rather than creating completely custom solutions. And being able to do that very quickly with very little sort of friction is what, to me, makes my job very exciting, in that we can bring value to organizations very quickly.
There's so much information in the world that even thinking about all of it can be overwhelming. But finding connections between different pieces of data can put the mind at ease. Suddenly, the world is slightly less complex. Our guest today suggests that noticing repeated elements can provide a way to see problems and solutions more clearly. IT Visionaries is brought to you by Salesforce Platform. If you love the thought leadership on this podcast, Salesforce has even more meaty IT thoughts to chew on. Take your company to the next level with in-depth research and trends right in your inbox. Subscribe to a newsletter tailored to your role at salesforce.com/newsletter. Welcome everyone to another episode of IT Visionaries, and today we have the CTO of InterVision Systems on the show, John Gray. John, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
All right out the gate, we ask this of all of our guests, but if someone doesn't know what InterVision does, can you explain for us, what is it, what does the company do, and what problems are you looking to solve?
Okay, so we are a SSP, which is a strategic service provider, and we provide technology services and solutions to small, medium, large businesses up to mid-enterprise. So we really stretch quite the gamut from on-prem solutions to increasingly cloud-focused. We do a whole variety of things, but very much business outcome oriented, increasingly so, right? So, we've changed significantly in the last few years as we've merged in different companies and really, changed with the times and the sort of focus on remote work and things like that. So very client focused, delivering technology to solve real business problems.
Yeah, and give us an idea of the kind of industries you serve. It's all over the place? Is it specialized and focused?
We're like many companies as you grow, and we're, about 600 people now, I think. We are starting to focus more, verticalize, right? We have served and continue to serve a wide array of businesses, but we are really starting to focus around healthcare, financial services, public sector, higher ed, manufacturing. But we also do quite a bit in media, entertainment, and gaming. So this is sort of yes and no. I mean, we have had a pretty wide variety of companies. We're starting to focus more on those verticals. Most of what they have in common is they're highly regulated or significantly regulated.
When I was listening to you talk, I was thinking to myself, hey, there's a big divide. There's a big split almost, because like if I think of like a media and gaming company, they're probably embracing cloud solutions much earlier than, let's say, a healthcare company or a FINRA company. They're slower to the cloud. I know they're transforming fast, but that's the general perception.
Yeah, I would have had the same perception, but it's actually not the case. Media and entertainment is somewhat slow in many areas to adopt the cloud. There's a lot of security and concerns around proprietary, things like that. So you'd be surprised. And it's really our Southern California presence that is sort of the big focus around media and entertainment. Although our latest acquisition is also doing some stuff in gaming that is pretty interesting, around game engines and things like that. So we're looking at integrating those two components of our business. So it's pretty exciting stuff. Edge, is starting to really become a player in all of that, but it's still a little sort of Wild West-ish with the edge technologies. So, I spend quite a bit of time talking to Gartner and trying to understand where the market's going and where technology fits and, how we best position ourselves to help our clients. And so there's a lot going on, but it may not always be what you would expect, to be honest.
Why is that?
Well, like I said, I mean, security issues, security concerns. We do a increasing amount across the board in ransomware protection. Security is holding certainly some organizations back. Concerns in that area, and rightly so. And then others where the companies that are born in the cloud and that just embrace the cloud from the very beginning obviously see tremendous agility and growth and scalability by using the technologies. It's tougher, having said that, for some of them larger organizations to switch and really take advantage of the modern technologies quite as quickly. So, and regulations are a big concern in the industries we're in as well.
We've heard some really cool options, for example, of like launching virtual machines in every instance of communication so that ransomware can't actually take over your PC, even if it were to be opened. There's some really interesting things, but you mentioned here, if it's in your system, of course, that's a bigger problem that you got to solve. And the way you were describing disaster recovery, I kept thinking to myself, which makes, maybe was not makes anything, but it might sound scary to some people. It's like it's one of those things where your CEO probably always wants, but doesn't want to invest in. Yet when it needs needed, it's got to be the best.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was the use case for the cloud when we first got into sort of selling cloud services and migrations. Half a dozen or more years ago, we'd talk about DR. And I think this was 2015. I think Southwest had been taken down, right?
Yeah.
The airline. And we used that as an example. And they were down for a few days, or spotty. And, it really hit home at that point. So, yeah, I mean, it's a cost-benefit analysis. And, I can tell you, I mean, what I now know really is, it kind of scares me in that I now understand. I got a stack of books here on essentially on how to break into systems, right? We do offensive security, penetration testing, and absolutely we can get in. I can understand now how to get in and around, endpoint protection and all of that. And then it's a matter of, can you then laterally get out and take over control? And we use the same software that the actual cyber criminals use, right? Except that we're communicating with our clients and they know we're there, right? Or they don't, but they know that we're doing things to help them. So that's very scary. And the average dwell time, which is the amount of time between when these criminals break into when they actually take action, is like 200 days. So they're in the system. Yeah. They are potentially, going after the backups. They're encrypting the backups first. So you need, immutable backups that are air gapped so that you can't lose your backups. So things like that need to be taken care of. It is a pretty worrying scenario for a CIO or somebody who's in the sort of lead technology sort of role. That when you think about it, organizations that are going to save money because they're not going to have physical offices as much anymore, right? Because they're increasingly just remote and using technology, but now they're increasingly vulnerable to being entirely kind of taken out, right? So if you're saving money because you may not be renting offices, but you're having to invest in more, DR and online security, ransomware protection as an organization, or you should be. So, that's part and parcel with your ability to truly leverage technology, in a modern way to support your constituents, your customers.
Yeah. The way you're describing this, it does echo some of the previous guests that are in CISO roles. They talk about really how the modern or hacking organization, right? It's not even a person, it's an organization now, is how sophisticated they can be, and how The old concepts of, hey, they're going to drop some type of malware or ransomware, it's going to copy some information, it's going to replicate itself, and then you're going to see a system go down, and then they're going to want to ask for money. Like that would be like the old way. But they talk about how like there's like these tools that companies now use, or these hacking orgs use, where they're just monitoring traffic flow, communications. They want to do all this stuff, and then sometimes the attack is through a mirror. Well, they pretend, because now they figured out John talks to Dave. Dave talks to Lisa. Every month, Dave asks Lisa for this thing. We're going to intercept that communication, mask ourselves as in they're intercepting information. They're getting direct access potentially to financial accounts, customer records, critical data. So it's like a super advanced methodology of, like you kind of said, like kind of like lay in the shadows. It's like an ambush attack.
Oh, it is. And I mean, they're able to use artificial intelligence, machine learning, right? Just like we do for, good intentions. They've got entire sort of markets there where they issue challenges for, be paid people to break into certain devices and things like that. So it's a significant challenge, and increasingly will be. So you've got to have this multi-pronged kind of way of defending yourself, but then also being able to recover.
Makes total sense.
The consequence of, and it's based upon the consequence of error for you. If I lost this, what would that do for me?
Now, how about for yourself personally? How did you end up having a love for technology? And of course, I want to know how you ended up on what seems like the security side. I'm sure you do other things, but most of this conversation has been around security and disaster recovery. Give us an idea of where you started and how you got to where you're at.
Okay, so back in the early '80s, I got into when PCs started to become a thing. I got into writing games, right? Early Space Invaders sort of stuff. I picked up a book on the Z80 processor and taught myself assembly code and started writing, early sort of Space Invader type stuff, right? So your typical kind of nerdy, teenage kind of, then I got into, did a computer science degree and got into kind of writing operating systems and compilers and very technical things. Went into the defense industry back in the UK, getting involved with tactical flight management and all of that for British Aerospace and that whole area. And then sort of changed my career because the defense industry was kind of dying off back there a bit, and went into more sort of business. And I was always interested in how technology can solve real world problems, right? So I sort of got my fill of, in those first few years, just the pure techie side of things. And then just became increasingly interested in business and growing businesses and understanding how technology could be part of that. So that's what brought me out to California in the late 80s, early 90s, doing, general certain software for healthcare, hospitals, and things like that. So I've always sort of liked the challenge of how to take the latest technology and all the cool, buzzwordy things and apply it to business, right? So come in and talk to the people that run businesses and just understand what makes this organization tick, right? No technology talk, just really understand how their business works, how they interact with their clients, what their contracts are, how they make money. And then understand how technology can be applied to help them with that as an enabler. Too often technology these days constrains organizations. They've got these systems, and how the systems work sort of start to influence how they work. That's backwards, right? Yeah. Technology should be enabling you, but in so many cases it's not. It's the opposite, right? So, many years I was in sort of architecture, enterprise architecture, IT consulting, management consulting kinds of roles. In the last half a dozen years, I've become much more cloud infrastructure security focused, but then all still a lot of the time spending time talking with clients just about their businesses, right? What they do, how they do it, and how technology can help. The focus on security is because it's become an existential threat to companies, right? Purely, it can take them out of business, which is so it's job zero, right? When I talk to companies and what they should be doing, it's like, well, first and foremost, what are you doing for security? Let's get that sort of handled. And then let's talk about your vision for your business. What are the business outcomes you're trying to achieve? What is the data that your organization operates on? Right? If you can understand the data that an operation uses, ingests, creates, how they interact with that data, that's who they are. The applications and the hardware and the software, that can come and go, right? That can be modernized. But increasingly, you think about it, the data that an organization operates on, that is them, if you just kind of step back and think about it. So
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are saying that now, right? That every company's, you'll hear some people say every company's a software company, every company's a content company, and like you just said, possibly every company's a data company, right? Because they all
yeah,
have some type of information critical to their success that they have to protect.
and I've always had, since I got into thinking about systems, I've always had a data-centric view.
Yeah.
Because that is the organization, right? Yes. So, and I agree. Software. What is cool now is that you got all these crazy startups still, sort of in the near where I live in the Bay Area, and now they're not pure tech. They are business that employs technology, right? So it's really fascinating seeing these newer companies, be created and how they integrate technology. Obviously, the big ones were companies like Uber that took modern omni-channel call center type of technology and wrote on top of a whole platform. That's how they created the business, right? And became, the complete disruptors into what they came into.
I always joke with some of our team members at Mission that the world is, I think, passed me by. I think about how amazing companies and how big they're thinking, or maybe it's a byproduct of what gets funded. The biggest ideas get the funding. I think to myself, man, my ideas are just so small. I just think about small problem solving, small, simple things.
It's I don't know that it's passed you by at all. I think it's if you can start to see the patterns, right, which
Yeah.
certainly become, with time, with age, you sort of start to see the things that repeat, the swings from, very centralized mainframes to client server to the internet to mobile, and then kind of the swinging back, more to the cloud and then to edge, and how that then sort of, goes back and forth. And really, what does it matter? It's really about the business and what people are trying to do and what they're trying to, do in their personal lives as well. So you see some of the same things sort of repeat, right? So I've always looked at patterns both in technology and in business, and how does this organization, what sort of problem patterns do they have, and therefore what technology solution patterns fit that. And so it's more now, I think, a matter of integrating existing components to solve business problems rather than creating completely custom solutions, and being able to do that very quickly, with very little sort of friction, right? Is what makes my job very exciting, in that we can bring value to organizations, very quickly.
The one question I have for you now that as you were talking, kept thinking in my head is you have an interesting seat. You're CTO of a services provider. That means you also have to evaluate technology all the time. So I guess How do you choose where to invest your time to investigate new technologies? Because this is one of those things where if you can't listen to the sales reps because every single sales reps on earth says they have groundbreaking technology. So that means you have to dial in and figure out of these new thousands of options, what it feels like each month in each category, which ones are going to be groundbreaking, which ones are going to transform my customer, and of course, which one am I going to go pay attention to? Because you can't pay attention to them all.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and we don't really, we work with businesses in various verticals. We don't necessarily need groundbreaking or bleeding edge. We're looking for things that are going to provide value, right, for the longer term
They're
for our
going to
clients.
work all the time when you need them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So, I mean, we look. I dropped some of the names there. We look to certain organizations that can help with that, right? Who are out talking with customers, and and frankly, they work with multiple organizations like us.
Yeah.
And we've got long-standing relationships with certain technology companies, and so we're tight with them. We know what's coming. We know how they are working out in the market. The Amazons, the Microsofts, the Google. They're out there. They've got hundreds of thousands of customers, right? So if you look at what they're doing, you don't have to figure it all out yourself, right? So it is sort of so we look to our partners, to industry experts, and we spend a lot of time talking with clients, seeing what they need, right? Advisory board kind of thing. So really understanding where they're at and what they need, and they don't probably need the absolute latest shiny object, right? They need things that are going to help them in the business, this month, next month, next year, help them with, interact with their employees, their customers. So, and then, we spend a lot of time talking with our technology partners. We've got a team that does just that, right? Who are then coming to me saying, this client's got, or this, not this client, this vendor's got this and this, right? We think it's probably market leading, or we know it's market leading. And they're using it over here very well for in this segment for these clients. They're delivering value, so we're looking for things that are proven, or at least starting to be proven. That can. So we're pretty organized because we're a certain size, but then that can get disrupted, right? Because you get some company that's growing very rapidly and getting market share very rapidly. They're out selling. They may have sold to some of our clients. You get kind of shadow IT, and IT is becoming sort of an older style word itself, right? Because technology is now very much just joined into business. So in some cases, we may not be choosing the technology; our clients may already be using it, right? And software as a service. So there are various forces in place, right, in the market. And we adapt, right, and we look at our own roadmap, develop our own roadmaps across certain areas. We've got centers of excellence around cloud and infrastructure and communications and resiliency. So we bring experts within our company together in those areas, and then we build solutions that incorporate components from each of those. So there's a value to sort of being focused in a particular area, but then if you're not careful, you're creating a silo, right, in an organization. Yeah. So then you have to step back and look across the greater picture, which is a lot of my job, right? I'm sort of up and down between looking at things in great detail and then coming back and looking at the bigger picture, considering the market forces, looking at what our clients are asking for, and then looking at where we think it's going to go in the next 3 months, 6 months, 18 months, and perhaps beyond that. But with as quickly as things change in this business, sort of an 18-month view is for me right now is probably kind of where I'm at. Beyond that, it gets harder because we've absorbed so much change, in the world in the last couple of years that really changed the way we all work. That I think we're going to see some really systemic, fundamental changes coming more, from that, and we don't really want to tie ourselves in too much. And as much as anything, I think it's really getting infrastructure and solutions and architecture and things in place that can continue to change without being completely disruptive, right? So we'll deliver solutions to organizations that are not necessarily a particular technology. There's a level of sort of indirection between what we're giving them and the underlying technology, because 6 months from now, the underlying technology, there may be something better from a different vendor, and we'll come and we'll put that in. So by working with us, the clients get the benefit of increasing, of newer technology without it becoming disruptive to them.
Makes total sense. John, I want to say thank you for joining us today on IT Visionaries and sharing some of the work that you're doing at InterVision. But before you go, it is time for the lightning round. The lightning round is brought to us by the Salesforce platform, the #1 cloud platform for digital transformation of every experience. John, this is where we ask you questions outside of the realm of work so our audience can get to know you a little better.
All right.
All right. What kind of hobbies or activities do you enjoy outside of work?
Okay. Hobby-wise, what I do is I build, fly, and race remote control airplanes, right? More older style, gas-powered, look like World War II.
Wait a second. Gas powered?
Well, they're nitro-powered. They're not electrics. So they're nitromethane, kind of stuff that runs dragsters and things like that in very small supercharged engines. So this is one of those kind of things I get completely into. My wife thinks I'm a complete idiot with it.
So do you fly these? Is it like a course or something like that where like you have to dodge obstacles?
Yeah, I mean, if you've ever heard of the Reno air races where these World War II planes fly around these pylons that are like 5 miles apart, it's a kind of scaled down version of that with 6-foot wingspan planes that are up 4 or 5 at a time.
Oh, this is pretty. It's a big RC device, 6-foot wingspan.
Yeah, about 150, 160 miles an hour, 4 or 5 planes up at a time. Once in a while.
Oh, this is no joke. This is no joke. How far away can one fly before it goes out of range of your controller?
Further than you can see.
Really?
Yes. I mean, you're probably flying 100 yards away from you, but. And now we've got enforced 400-foot ceiling because of the whole sort of law changing from the FAA. We're in drones.
Okay, so this is a very intense activity. You said these things get over 100 miles an hour. So now I got to ask, how much does it cost? One of these RC planes, is it? It's got to be. It's got to cost something.
You can ask me that because my wife might see this.
Because I know if you're doing these stunts, you're also crashing them.
Yeah, no, I mean you're probably investing $1,000 or so in a plane.
Oh, it's not too bad.
Yeah, and if it crashes, if you're lucky, the kind of the expensive parts survive. The engine and the radios these days are very sort of solid state, pretty robust. So it's not as bad as it used to be way back. So yeah, it's a great hobby, and I mean, then the whole drone side of it is cool too, which is but in some ways to me that's kind of boring because the software can just control the whole thing, right? It can sit there, it can come back to you. You just press a button.
You want to pilot this thing? Yeah,
I'm so more old school, and for me it's an adrenaline rush, the competitiveness, and I'm still a somewhat competitive person. So there's various aspects to that. There's engineering, technology, competitive, So that's kind of a, very geeky, but not, I've got a group of people we gather. We're actually doing it this weekend. There'll be people from kind of all over the West Coast to one of the events near us, so near at my club. So it's kind of a, rolling in some RVs,
Hey,
hang out
listen,
this
on
weekend.
IT Visionaries, we don't think anyone's geeky. It's always interesting hearing people's hobbies.
So yeah, there you go. I mean,
that's pretty awesome.
yeah,
A little competition, a little engineering, all wrapped into one hobby.
it is. Yeah. I got
Well-
some others, but that's the main one.
Well, John, thanks for joining us today again on IT Visionaries. It was awesome having you. Thanks for sharing some of your vision for disaster recovery, security, cybersecurity, hybrid work and remote workforce, and of course, remote control planes.
There you go. Hey, great talking with you, Albert.